The cursed halls of Harrenhal have witnessed many betrayals throughout the centuries, but none more profound than when Prince Daemon Targaryen, the rogue prince himself, turned his back on everything he had once fought to protect. This is the untold story of how the most loyal servant of House Targaryen became its greatest internal threat, and how the ancient stones of Harrenhal witnessed the moment when fire turned against fire. The arrival at the cursed castle in the year 129 AC, as the dance of dragons tore the Seven Kingdoms apart. Daemon Targaryen arrived at Harrenhal with a singular purpose: to rally the Riverlands to his wife Rhaenyra's cause. The great castle, built by Harren the Black and destroyed by Aegon the Conqueror's dragonfire, had stood as a monument to hubris for over a century. But Daemon saw it as the perfect stronghold from which to launch his campaign against the usurper Aegon II. The conquest of Harrenhal was swift and bloodless. Daemon landed Caraxes atop the Kingspire Tower, the very place where Harren the Black had met his fiery end. Seer Simon Strong, the elderly Castellan serving in place of his great-nephew, Larys Clubfoot, took one look at the blood-red dragon and immediately surrendered the castle. It seemed like a perfect beginning to what should have been a triumphant campaign. But Harrenhal was no ordinary castle, and Daemon Targaryen was no ordinary man. The moment he set foot in those cursed halls, forces beyond his understanding began to work upon his mind and soul. The Witch of Harrenhal among the survivors of House Strong was a bastard daughter named Alice Rivers, a woman of mysterious origins, and even more mysterious abilities. She served as a wet nurse and healer within the castle. But those who knew her understood that she possessed gifts that went far beyond the mundane. Alice could see visions of the future, glimpse the threads of fate that bound all living things together, and most dangerously of all, she could peer into the deepest recesses of a man's soul. When Daemon arrived at Harrenhal, Alice immediately recognized him as something more than just another dragon lord seeking conquest. She saw in him a man tormented by a lifetime of being second best, of serving a brother who never truly trusted him, of fighting for a crown that had always been just beyond his reach. More importantly, she saw the potential for that torment to be transformed into something far more dangerous. Alice began her work on Daemon's psyche with subtle manipulation. She spoke to him of the castle's cursed history, of how Harren the Black had cut down the sacred weirwood trees to build his monument to pride. She told him that the very bed he slept upon was carved from one of those ancient heart trees, and that the spirits of the old gods still whispered through its wood. Daemon dismissed her words as midwives' tales, but the seeds of doubt had been planted. Night after night, as he lay upon that weirwood bed, visions began to plague his dreams. The visions of guilt and ambition. The first vision came to Daemon as he slept in the great chamber of Harrenhal. He found himself face to face with a young Rhaenyra, not the queen she had become, but the innocent girl he had once known. In this dream, she held the severed head of Prince Jaehaerys, the child who had died because of demons, ordered to blood and cheese. The vision was a brutal confrontation with his own guilt, forcing him to face the consequences of his actions. But the visions did not stop there. Night after night, Daemon was visited by figures from his past and future. He saw his late wife, Lena Valerian, who spoke to him of love and loss. He witnessed scenes of his own death, glimpses of a future where he and his nephew Aemond would fall together into the waters of the gods. The most disturbing vision of all came when Daemon dreamed of his mother, Alyssa Targaryen. Twisted nightmare, he found himself intimately involved with the woman who had given him life, the only person who had ever truly believed in his worth. When she whispered that he was her favorite son, Daemon awoke in horror, but also with a terrible clarity about what he truly desired. The vision of his mother was the breaking point. Alyssa had always told him that he was stronger than his, more worthy of the crown, more capable of ruling. In his fevered dreams, she reminded him of these truths, and Daemon began to believe that perhaps it was not too late to claim what should have been his from the beginning. The seeds of betrayal. The weeks passed at Harrenhal. Daemon's behavior began to change in ways that alarmed those around him. The lords of the Riverlands who had come to pledge their swords to Queen Rhaenyra found themselves dealing with a man who seemed more interested in his own glory than in their rightful queen's cause. Daemon began to speak of himself not as consort or general, but as a king in his own right. He reminded anyone who would listen that he had once been crowned king of the Stepstones and the Narrow Sea, that he had proven his ability to rule through conquest and strength. Why should he continue to serve as a mere prince consort when he could claim the Iron Throne for himself? The transformation was gradual, but unmistakable. The man who had spent years fighting for his family's dynasty was slowly becoming its greatest threat. The ancient magic of Harrenhal, channeled through Ali's rivers, manipulations, and the cursed weirwood bed, was stripping away the layers of loyalty and duty that had defined Daemon Targaryen, revealing the naked ambition that lay beneath. The moment of truth, the final betrayal, came when Seer Alfred Broom arrived at Harrenhal with a message from Dragonstone. Broom, a member of Rhaenyra's own council, had grown disillusioned with his queen's leadership and saw in Daemon a stronger alternative. He spoke to the prince of the need for decisive action, of the lords who would follow a true king rather than a queen who seemed paralyzed by indecision. "You have mustered an army while she makes questionable choices," Broom told Daemon. "You are a leader of men who should declare his right to sit upon the throne. What they need right now is a king." The words were like a match thrown into dry kindling. All of Daemon's suppressed resentments, all of his buried ambitions, all of the poison that Ali's rivers had been feeding into his dreams, suddenly burst into flame. In that moment, Prince Daemon Targaryen made the choice that would define the rest of his life. He would no longer serve the crown, but seek to claim it for himself. Daemon's response to Broom was telling. Rather than rejecting the suggestion outright, he smiled with a look that suggested he was seriously considering treachery. The loyal prince who had fought for his family through countless battles and political crises was gone, replaced by a man who saw only his own desires and ambitions. The consequences of lost faith. The betrayal at Harrenhal sent shockwaves through the Black faction. Seer Simon Strong, the loyal Castellan who had witnessed Daemon's transformation, immediately sent word to Dragonstone, warning Rhaenyra of her husband's potential treachery. The queen, already burdened by the weight of civil war and the loss of her children, now faced the possibility that her own husband had turned against her. The political implications were staggering. Daemon commanded not only the largest and most experienced dragon in the Black faction's arsenal, but also the loyalty of a significant portion of the Riverlands' military forces. If he truly intended to press his own claim to the Iron Throne, it would effectively split the Black faction in two, making victory against Aegon II and the Greens virtually impossible. But perhaps more devastating than the political consequences was the personal betrayal. Rhaenyra had trusted Daemon above all others, had made him her consort and the father of her children, had relied on his strength and experience to guide her through the treacherous waters of civil war. To learn that he was contemplating abandoning her cause for his own ambitions was a blow that cut deeper than any sword. The deeper currents. The betrayal at Harrenhal was not simply the result of one man's ambition or the influence of a cunning witch. It was the culmination of deeper currents that had been flowing through Daemon Targaryen's life for decades. From his earliest days, he had lived in the shadow of his older brother Viserys. Always the spare, never the heir. He had watched as Viserys was given everything that Daemon believed he deserved. The crown, the respect, the trust of their father and the realm. Even after Viserys' death, even after marrying Rhaenyra and becoming her consort, Daemon had never truly escaped that shadow. He remained the prince, never the king, always serving someone else's vision rather than pursuing his own. The discovery that Viserys had never trusted him enough to share the prophecy of the prince that was promised was perhaps the final insult, the ultimate proof that he would never be seen as truly worthy. Harrenhal, with its ancient magic and cursed history, simply provided the catalyst for emotions and resentments that had been building for a lifetime. Ali's rivers did not create Daemon's ambition. She merely gave it permission to emerge from the depths where it had been buried, beneath layers of duty and loyalty. The path to redemption. The story of Daemon's betrayal at Harrenhal might have ended there, with the rogue prince finally claiming the crown he had always believed was rightfully his. But the ancient magic that had corrupted him also provided the means for his redemption. In his final vision, guided by Ali's rivers to the weirwood tree in Harrenhal's Godswood, Daemon saw something that changed everything. He witnessed the true scope of the threat facing his family and the realm. He saw the White Walkers and their army of the dead, the long night that would one day come again. He saw Daenerys Targaryen and her dragons, the last hope of House Targaryen's survival. Most importantly, he saw Rhaenyra sitting on the Iron Throne, not as a weak queen but as the rightful ruler who would preserve their dynasty for future generations. In that moment of clarity, Daemon understood that his personal ambitions were insignificant compared to the greater destiny of House Targaryen. The crown he had coveted for so long was not a prize to be won, but a burden to be borne. And Rhaenyra was the one chosen by fate to bear it. The final choice. When Rhaenyra finally arrived at Harrenhal to confront her wayward husband, she found a man transformed once again. The ambitious prince, who had contemplated betraying everything he had once held dear, was gone. replaced by someone who finally understood his true purpose. Daemon knelt before his queen and pledged his loyalty anew, not out of duty or political necessity, but out of genuine understanding of what was at stake. The betrayal at Harrenhal had lasted only weeks, but its effects would echo through the remainder of the Dance of Dragons and beyond. Daemon's moment of faithlessness had revealed the depths of his character, both its darkness and its capacity for redemption. It had also demonstrated the terrible power of Harrenhal itself, a place where the ancient magics of Westeros could strip away a man's pretenses and reveal the truth that lay beneath. Legacy of the Cursed Castle. The betrayal at Harrenhal stands as one of the most pivotal moments in the Dance of Dragons, a reminder that even the most loyal servants of House Targaryen were not immune to the temptations of power and ambition. It showed that the greatest threats to the dynasty often came not from external enemies, but from within, from family members whose love had been corrupted by resentment, and whose loyalty had been poisoned by unfulfilled desires. But it also demonstrated the possibility of redemption, the chance for even the most fallen to find their way back to the light. Daemon's ultimate choice to support Rhaenyra's claim, made with full knowledge of what it would cost him personally, was perhaps the most heroic act of his entire life. In choosing duty over ambition, family over self, he finally became the man he had always had the potential to be. The cursed stones of Harrenhal had witnessed the moment when Prince Daemon Targaryen lost faith in the crown he had served for so long. But they also witnessed his redemption, the moment when he chose to serve something greater than himself. In the end, the betrayal at Harrenhal was not the story of a prince's fall, but of his ultimate rise to become the man his family needed him to be. The blood of the dragon had been tested in the fires of temptation, and found worthy, and in that worthiness lay the hope that House Targaryen would endure, no matter what trials lay ahead.